Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Doors podcast. I am here with Rahul Ballal. So Rahul is currently the engineering lead at Pepperstone, one of the largest online brokers. Born in central India, then made his way to the United States where he got his MS in computer science. He's worked with some of the biggest names there are like Intel, 3M, Cornerstone On Demand, as well as a bunch of startups and scale-ups. And since moving to Australia in 2017, Rahul has been on a similar adventure, working at companies like Seek, Domain, and Pursuit prior to this. So without further ado, welcome Rahul, who has more than 20 years experience to the podcast. Rahul, how are we?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm excited for this chat today. You're someone I really look up to and respect, and someone that's in that industry. So yeah, tell us a bit more about yourself or anything that you're up to that's exciting at the moment.
When it comes to exciting stuff, I always finding that connection between people and what an organization wants, and trying to achieve the organizational goals through technology, and have fun while doing that.
That's the main part. You got to have fun, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of leadership, how long have you been working in leadership for now?
So I'm someone who has been in and out of leadership and individual contributor roles. Sometimes, like I said, worked at startups. So being in a leadership at startup sometimes can really exhaust you. So once that gig is over, I would take some time to just go back to the basics or the roots, just to do some heads down, execute some programs or execute some engineering goals, and so that I'm also in touch with what's it like to be on the front line and not just leading the crew from the backside.
Yes, that's the difference between leadership and management, isn't it? You've got to do that example and everything like that. And obviously, someone with 20 years experience, you've been through many overcomings and learnings and wisdoms. And yeah, maybe you can share some of the things that you've been through that, I always think that you have to go through adversity to really learn, or you have to go through something that's quite chaotic to learn, and you have to really be thrown in that kind of fire. So have you got any examples or anything that you've had real overcoming that you could share with people?
I mean, everyone has different life trajectories, and challenges would be different. And I think in this profession specifically, I think your hunger to learn and develop new skills has to be one of the things that part of your nature. And if you believe in star signs and things like that, I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm always up for something different, something new. So even if I'm not sure if I'll use this technology in near future on my project or something, I have that curiosity to let's check out what this thing called closure programming is. I might not use it, but it just helps your brain to throw away something. So if you've done, let's say, object-oriented programming before, closure is nothing like object-oriented programming. So you have to unlearn a few things, and as long as you can challenge yourself with that, I think most times the technical part, like, we probably hold too dear to our heart. I'm an object-oriented programmer or this or that.
Yeah.
This profession is such that to get the outcomes that you want, you often have to just like throw away your tools on the side and start from the scratch like a caveman again. Like, how do you do hello world again in this programming language? I've written like threaded applications or whatever, but I don't even know. So you take that approach, and at least for someone like me who likes programming for solving real world problems, let's say for a company that's trying to do, for example, trading or things like that, and not just build technology. So I think that curiosity should also translate into understanding the business, because at the end of the day, you're providing some service for the end user.
You're so right. It's that like product mentality, isn't it? You're thinking about the user and how this is going to fit. And obviously working in financial as well, this is dealing with people's money. So it's like you're actually really having to think deep.
Yeah. And there's perfectly valid reasons to be an engineer that likes to solve really hard programming problems. Like I want to defend like this website from getting attacked. So I'll run like 15 different algorithms to figure out if this is legitimate traffic or like some hacker trying to do something. That's also a problem worth solving. It's just we need all kinds of programmers in this industry.
Yes. And you're somebody that's obviously worked in America for a little while, worked in Australia as well. Like, do you see any real big differences from those kind of the attitudes or ways of development?
Yeah, I think without risking myself too much, I think what I've seen firsthand in US versus here is I look at the US kind of like the Hollywood almost. So like if you're an actor, you have to get big in Hollywood, and then you'll be known even in your own country. So someone like, let's say, I think Russell Crowe is Aussie.
Yes.
And after Gladiator, the entire world knew him, and we actually celebrated him. Hey, Russell Crowe has done this fantastic movie, Gladiator, this, that, whatever. So sometimes a lot of the realization or like the new stuff happens over there, and Australia being so geographically far off from US and closer to like a lot of Asian countries. So we have this unique opportunity of having that little bit of Western culture, but at the same time having access to a lot of Eastern markets, right?
True.
So there's pros and cons, but when it comes to organizations, I feel that in the US, for better or worse, they take a lot more risks. So you'll often see crazy valuations for a startup, and then 2 years later, the startup's gone. Or like a big company who's we will think in our heads that, oh, it must be making a lot of money, but hasn't turned profitable for like last 5 years. But the investors have that confidence in the tech, the talent pool, and all that stuff, so that they can take more risk. And talent pool is a big factor. Not that they can not get talented people from outside of US, but US itself has so many universities and a good influx of students coming from all over to study, like myself. And I haven't studied here to say enough, but there's always this drive for international students to get internships even before they graduate from their uni. So for example, when I worked for a company called First American Corporation, and I was an intern while I was completing my master's thesis. So little bit of like pursuit of happiness style story. I would wake up in the morning, go to the bus stop. I didn't have a car, take about an hour-ish long bus journey, get to the office, work over there, and I think I would get out around 3 p.m. or something, catch another bus back. And on the bus back, sometimes I would be like finishing up my thesis or like just trying to jot down some ideas of, okay, when I go home, I'm going to write about this thing or research about that thing. So that struggle is not just mine. A lot of students do that. And if it's happening here, that's amazing. But I think in the beginning years, I think that's something that I've seen a lot of people do that. And that rigor or that discipline helps in your career as well. Because like I said, the talent is there in the US. So the competition makes you just keep getting better. And it can, on the flip side, can wear you down, or that the competition might be too much. But I think that's where competition is where how we evolve, right?
Yes.
Natural selection and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's true. And it's America's like this hub, isn't it? It's like people go there and it's the American dream, like the actual saying itself of like, hey, you go there. And I find that there's a lot of great technology there, but also Australia has so many great companies.
Absolutely.
And especially in Melbourne, like there's so many powerhouses. Like we're not forgetting Sydney, but like, you know, all over even, but it is it's different in terms of numbers. Like I once did a collection of data for Canva, and it was the amount of machine learning engineers we had here was like 1,000. And obviously, this is one of the top emerging roles that's currently the government has said. In America, it was like 10,000,
Yeah.
and it's a whole different ball game, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And I like what you touched on about the talent side, because you are right. Like, I mean, that's my bread and butter, right? I'm always
Yeah.
speaking to people, networking. And what do you look for in, when you're looking to hire? Like, what do you look for? Like, is there any characteristics or anything like that specifically?
Yeah, I think I'll look for slightly different things for which role or which seniority I'm trying to hire. Speaking from my personal experience, when I finished my bachelor's degree, I did not know how to write a good HTML page that looked good. Like I would draw like tables, not draw, but code up tables and things like that, and think this is amazing. And then I would go on the internet and see like websites that I can't even understand how they built it. So right out of college, without too much of professional experience or internship experience, I would probably look at the capability to learn and those fundamentals. Are they there? And I wouldn't say like, do you know all the top 5 hardest algorithms or dynamic programming, like in today's day and age, because that's always something that you can look up, you can refresh. As long as you know something like this exists, that's a good start enough. Hey, I don't exactly know how this sorting algorithm works, but I know that this exists, and I'm gonna quickly look it up, and then I'll start implementing it. So there's a little bit of resourcefulness. There's a little bit of curiosity to learn new things, and so that would be like one of the key things that I would look for in the early stage, like junior engineer or intern level candidates.
Yeah.
As you go towards mid level, I would say like if you were thinking about scope of work, so junior would almost need some kind of guiding mentor kind of thing.
Correct.
And once they start becoming, let's say, mid level, their scope of work or scope of autonomy increases a bit. So they would be a bit more self-sufficient. You don't need to tell me which file to update. I'll figure out myself. Then senior would mean like, you give me this little module to build, so I can focus on building that module and work with other people. So there's all those aspects come in. So as you can see, you're starting from kind of the same fundamentals, but the scope gets bigger and bigger. So if I give you a file, can you add content to it or add code to it? Or if I give you a file, can you fix the bug? And it starts growing from there. And I always look for mid-level to senior people if they can pick up new things fairly quickly, be it frameworks, be it programming languages and things like that. So for example, if we've always done, let's say, Java or something, and now the company says we need a mobile app, right? So you have the bare bones of Java to write code in Java. And then, for Android applications, you might need to use something like Kotlin, which is not too far syntactically from Java. But, give me a couple of weeks and I'll come back to you, and I'll be okay with taking that up. So a little bit of confidence and belief in your own skills, that I can pick up a new framework, you can pick up a new language, and that's usually demonstratable using like 1 or 2 projects that they've done in the past. So that initiative of, hey, I can try this out, and trying to gain that backing from their seniors as well. Like, if you trust in me, it's like I always go back to like sports and stuff. Like for example, cricket, you have to defend 3 runs of your final 6 balls. Unless you raise your hand, you're never going to know if you can do it or not. So you need some people who have risked a few things and have wins or losses under their belt to make that educated decision. You know what? I think I can pick this up in 2 weeks. And as a good leader, so if you start hiring up the chain, a good leader will either say, you know what, you're probably betting too much on yourself. Maybe take 3 weeks, and that's fine. Or you might want people that are in some way figure out, you know what, go for 2 weeks, but if something goes wrong, I have your back. So with the leadership or team lead type roles, I would always look for, do they have that sense of people skills to, because they've probably risen up the ranks. They probably have good technical founding, but now you have to look for these subtle signs and have those people skills to deliver a bad news, good news, temper expectations.
Yeah.
You're overestimating yourself or underestimating yourself. So I think that comes in super handy.
And
Sorry, long-winded answer, but at each thing, what I look for is slightly different.
that's brilliant. And I love where you're talking about going up from mid-level, the curiosity that you need to junior level being the curiosity. Mid, it's more you're growing and you're able to be a bit more confident. And then seniority, I agree. I mean, I consult with people about this in terms of their leadership team. There's often a path two people go. And it's like where you've been in technology for so many years, right? You're like, yeah, you can learn a new language or learn it, but people skills is like a whole nother game.
Yeah.
It's like my saying is people do people best. And it's like I've had so many stories where like, you've helped people into jobs and you hear all sorts, right? And that's what recruitment is like. However, from your perspective, you've probably seen loads of different types of leaders and those.
Yeah.
But in terms of the future of technology, where do you see the future of technology going?
I think future of technology, I think we have to embrace a few things. I think I've kind of intentionally skipped the blockchain and that boat, but I think is it too early to use the word AI?
Hey, we're 16 minutes
16
in.
minutes
This is.
I think it's becoming. I think I was reading some statistic that people have stopped going to Google almost, and they would rather use an AI tool to get the results that they want because it's a bit more tailored, like condenses a few things that you would otherwise open 15 tabs and figure out one thing that you want to do from those 15 tabs. So I think using AI as a learning tool and still having those fundamentals there to, because AI right now, the AI is built on what's available, right? So that's a mix of good code, bad code. So you need to be able to understand, you know what, this doesn't quite look right. Or like that prompt that you gave the AI system is not good enough to give you exactly what you want. But you know what, I can just tweak this 5-6 lines and do that. So there's that skill that at least today is needed. Otherwise you'll be in that loop of, okay, how about I ask this same question a different way, or the same question another way, or different AI tool or things like that. And once you select that code and maybe you use some tool like Copilot or something to even generate tests for it and everything like that, what will be critical is like when it's in production. And now it's like where you copied the code from, or how you got to the code, or was it code reviewed by this person, and that all that stuff really doesn't matter if it's not working in production. How do you make it work? So at that time, at least today, I don't know what AI will do in the future, but at least today you still have to look at the logs and things like that. So like, how do I productionize systems? How do I make them observable? So you'll get a lot of guidance, but you still have to be the ship commander or the pilot. I always see those jets with like 1,000 switches, and there's like one person sitting at the, I don't know what's it called, yoke, or the steering wheel yoke for the flight center
I
or
didn't
the
know.
command center.
Yep.
And you still need to know which lever or which switch to flip at which time. So you should be the one controlling it, and AI should be a tool. So long story short, I think stick to some of the basics: how to debug system, how to performance tune system, because the AI might give you a, let's say, database query, but it's really slow and you cannot give it organizational data to say, can you make it fast for this data set? You just can't do that if you like your job, at least. There will be parts where you'll have to learn how to optimize. So these are the skills that used to come with seniority, but because some of the simpler tasks have become so easy to automate, I think the challenging part would be fast forwarding yourself to that stage where you can do these things in like maybe 1 or 2 years of experience, which can be very scary. And I feel for the new people that are joining the workflows right now, but that's something that I feel that you'll have to train yourself some way or the other.
That's amazing. I love the analogy that you talk about with the cockpit of like flying the plane and, you know, AI being one of the switches, because it is true. And the power of your words of just get the fundamentals down. Because I sense that a lot of juniors coming in, they're going to rely heavily on some of these toolings and not necessarily think, because it goes the other way, right? Where some people interview and ask an algorithm question that they don't even know the answer to. And it's like, what's the point of asking this in an interview? Because you don't even know the answer. What's the outcome you're trying to get? So I think it is here to stay in terms of how we leverage it. And people have lost, okay, is this machine learning? Is it AI? Is it like, there's so many different terms and people are just like labeling it. Oh, it's AI. It's like, but it's the fundamentals you have to get down.
Yeah, I think there was a meme or comic strip that I was reading. So it was like, machine learning, machine is learning. What are you doing?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and that made me think that, okay, machines are learning how to write code. Machines probably in the future will know how to talk to a product manager. But is that something that you want machines to do? I think the dream was machines do the boring stuff and we do the interesting stuff, not the other way around.
Yeah, and it won't be a world of where's John Connor, you know, the Terminator. And any wisdom that you could share with all of the listeners or watchers, like obviously someone I respect hugely, like 20 years of experience and to have led at certain companies and come up through the ranks and just your perspective. So any parting wisdoms, anything that you would like to share?
I think, like I said, just be curious. It'll take you a long way. And as engineers, we often say this, like without realizing that we could be part of the problem, is, oh, this tool has like really bad documentation, right? Or this person gave me some documentation about this program and doesn't make sense to me. And I noticed that, I mean, this is because I had to work really hard for my thesis writing and thesis defense and things like that. Not necessarily technical writing as like manuals, but explaining, let's say, an implementation in 2 or 3 flavors. So for example, often you would write a document saying like, this is how this thing works, but you have to explain the same thing using, for a business, how does this thing work? Because you don't want to talk about, then, you know, this function calls this, and the business person will be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the perspective changes to an engineer who actually wants to know what functions are called and so on and so forth. And then there's another, that DevOps movement, right? How does this thing get into production? So there is a bit of that. And then, so trying to develop a skill to write these, it's almost like a technical documentation with different perspectives that you can add. That is huge. And it doesn't have to be like you're writing a book where you sit for 3-4 months or a year and it just gets spit out. So with the documentation, you have to practice a bit of diagramming as well, because what's that thing? Picture speaks 1,000 words or something like that.
Yeah.
And with that, if you have engineers like me who are very visual, so first they'll look for, does this have any pictures in it? Like that's a very common way of like visual learners, or even people like me who don't read a lot of books, but I read a lot of articles. And like, even if I read like a big book, my notes are actually pictographic or diagrammatic. So instead of process like step 1, step 2, step 3, I have like boxes and arrows as my notes. So representing your code or your thoughts into easy to digest diagrams and simple words. I mean, for by all means use AI to, grammar correct and all that kind of stuff. But that's the boring part. Like, be good at structuring those documents.
And it's almost like you've learned how you learn,
Yeah.
and that's how you can scale.
Yeah. And everyone probably has a different way. With me, if you give me a book, which is just walls and walls of text, I find it very difficult to process that information. So I have to actually cut it down, bite size, convert it into a visual format that like sticks in my head, and then you can do that. And that understanding that audience, that's why writing almost the same thing, but with different perspectives, because one party doesn't need to know about operational side of things, but they still care for this thing to work and make money for the company. So
And that's the people skills part you spoke about, right? Like as you go further up the ladder and you become more of a leader, you realize, hey, I'm going to need to interact with sales or marketing, and they're not going to understand if you're talking about the latest feature enclosure or anything like that. It's, your audience.
Yeah. And if I could give a tip, there is I think a way of working or way of thinking about systems. It's called I think service design. I think it's very popular in UI UX kind of ecosystems where there is a service design. But for an engineer, that service design could look like, okay, who are the customers, so that you kind of get an understanding of severity, or like, are they here to have fun on the website, or like, do we want them to spend more time, or sometimes you actually want them to spend least time as possible. So for example, if you're using pay id to send it shouldn't take like half an hour to do it. But if you're on Facebook, people want you to waste half an hour or something on it, right? So it's so understand the user and then try to map it out to like, do I need to let legal know anything about this? Do I need to know? And you have to work with people, but at the end, if you're at a principal engineer level or trying to work across different specialties or business domains or things like that, then having that service design helps, even if it's just like it's a fishbone diagram of, okay, first the user is here, then I need to probably talk to marketing, because we just don't want to surprise people. Hey, this feature is here now or something. So they might want to say, okay, watch out, 3 months from now you're going to get this or that, whatever. So try to go through the entire journey and then earmark the people that you want direct comms with. And then some people, for example, like a product manager would handle the comms with the marketing people or the sales people or things like that. So understanding that is good. You probably don't have to do a whole lot, but just understand that this is the whole thing. It's not just some feature in a silo and then you sit back, because if it doesn't run in production, doesn't do company any good, then it's probably effort wasted.
That's brilliant. I think that is a brilliant place for us to leave this chat on. I've had so much fun, and there's so much wisdom, like from the way that you learn, relatability, all of these things. So thank you very much for coming on today, Rahul, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure was mine. Thank you.
Cheers.